Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. This is day 2 of the Bangalore Literature Festival. If you're just joining us, thank you for joining in. And if you've been with us since morning and yesterday, thank you for your support. And we hope this is turning out to be a rather enjoyable weekend for all of you. Our next session is called Language, Literature and Translation. And it promises to be a freewheeling discussion with Vivek Shanbhag, one of contemporary Kannada's finest writers. Vivek Shanbhag has published 5 short story collections, 3 novels, and 2 plays. He has edited 2 anthologies, one of which is in English. Vivek was the founding editor of the literary journal Deshakala. His critically acclaimed novel Gachar Guchar is translated into 18 languages worldwide. Gachar Guchar was also on the list of the best 10 books of 2017 by New York Times, as well as The Guardian. It is one of Vulture's 100 best books of the 21st century. Vivek is the co-translator of U.R. Ananthamurthy's book, Hindutva or Hindraj into English. Thank you for joining us, Vivek. And he will be in conversation with Karthik Venkatesh, who is an editor and also writes extensively about history, language, literature, and education. If anyone in the audience has questions for our panelists, please feel free to use our Q&A section on Zoom. And if someone in the audience here would like to ask questions, please let us know and we will enable that. And with that, over to you.
Thank you. So thank you everyone for joining us. This session, as we were told, is entitled Language, Literature and Translation. And we are going to be broadly trying and talking about around these areas. So I'm going to try and get Vivek to talk about each of these things, his experiences as a writer, as an editor, as a translator. So Vivek, the obvious first question. When did it all start? That moment in time, if there was one, or that broad period of time when you began to write and you began to think of life as a writer?
I think probably when I was 14, 15 years old is when I thought that I must become a writer. Mm-hmm. But I think the influences probably started much earlier. My grandfather was a teacher and he taught me to read, write when I was maybe 4 years old. And I started reading at that age. And in Kannada, you can, since it's a phonetic language, you can start reading the moment you learn the alphabets. You may not understand it, that's a different thing. But you start reading. And then I started reading. I used to read a lot, even as a child. And I remember once I was reading, in Sudha, one of the serials, that were there, and there was a scene about a man molesting, and that woman commits suicide. So I went and asked my mother, why should she commit suicide if somebody, does this? And then from that day onwards, all these things were beyond me. Mm-hmm. So I had to then go back to Mahabharata and Chandamama and sort of things. So because it's as I said, you can read, you may not understand everything.
A regression of sorts.
Yeah, it was. The other influence on me was Yakshagana, which my father was a great fan of Yakshagana, and he would take me to almost every show that. And I have seen hundreds of them in my childhood. So you watch these things all night. And Yakshagana is such a powerful form. It has, it requires you to imagine everything, in that 10 by 10 or whatever stage. Mm-hmm. And that it is, it's a kind of training your mind gets to look at art. Because the Bhagavatas who are sitting behind, they'll be sipping tea and they will be in normal clothes. And then there are, artists who come in a different makeup. And when they describe and tell you this is the Indra Sabha, and you have to imagine it. And then there's also a language. Then it has dance. So it's a very rich form, and it makes you. It did two things to me. One is that you don't look at certain things, or don't look at Yakshagana or anything for the story, because these are the same things. Something about Duryodhana. It's the same episode which happens some 10 times. And I would go and watch all 10, and every time it is different.
Right.
So it is something that and it is every Yakshagana lover knows this, because when the people change, it can give you a different experience. So that's one very profound thing. Second is, as I said, imagining, to go beyond. The third is with Yakshagana is you pick up one moment and elaborate it. For example, there is a Karna, when he is about to die, after that arrow has pierced him, that conversation can go on for 3 hours. And Valivada, for example, it's a very small episode of Rama killing him, and it goes on for whole night. So that element of this form, which you pick up one small moment and elaborate and go on and on and on, that's something which I feel now when I look back, maybe it has made a very profound impact on me, and the way I look at art, the way I look at literature, etc., etc. So those were my initial influences, and around the age of 14, that I strongly felt I must become a writer. Though I didn't go to study literature. That's a different thing.
Right.
Because I come from a small place, and there was very little exposure. All of my classmates, they took science, so I did. They went in for engineering, which was a done thing in those days, and so I also did that, and that's how I joined engineering. And of course, I have no regrets, because it exposed me and it gave me a completely different experience, which otherwise I would not have got. Maybe something else would have happened, but this was, and because I was not a student of literature, I always felt that I must do more to, whether it's reading or whether it is effort in writing or whatever. And I did that. And now when I look back, compared to many of my friends who are literature students, I ended up reading more than them, because you always want to do. It's something that you feel is lacking in you.
Interesting. The way you described Yakshagana, it almost seems like something like an archaeological dig. They're just going deeper and deeper into one little
absolutely.
piece of
It was very, and also at the same time, I was very fond of course, reading, and also my grandfather's sister was always, bothering her to tell me stories, and she always obliged, and she always told the same story. There was one story which she said every time when I asked her for a story, and that story started. It's the same story, but the details were very different, and I was never bored of that story. And now I see the connection, because if she was in the kitchen, she would start the story in the kitchen. And once my sister had broken her leg, so the sister of the hero in the story also had a broken leg, things like this. But there is some magic in that. So that the way you connect things, and so it just, as I said, that knowing what next, the storyline was not always important.
Right.
It was something else.
So to your life in literature, I guess, since you, like you said, you weren't a literature student, right? You had an engineering career. So what next was always not so important for you. So you wrote as you felt, as you responded, or
absolutely.
was there a plan, a bigger plan?
No, there was no plan as such. But I feel that having a day job, which is different than writing, it gave me a different kind of freedom. Freedom to write when I want to write, freedom to publish when I want to publish. So there was no pressure to do it to pay my bills,
Right.
To put it little crudely. But that pressure was not there. So as a result, it was my own wish, my own, I could shape my own writing, I could shape my own publishing, whatever. So I feel it has done good to me to have a day job. to have a career which is not literature linked.
Right. Okay. Now, this is a debate that used to come up a lot in the past. We don't hear it that much anymore, but I mean, I'm sure it will come up again and again. Now, for instance, there was this whole debate about Indians writing in English, right? Indians can't write properly in English because English is not their mother tongue and so on. But then your mother tongue is not Kannada, right? And you're a Kannada writer. So I'm just asking you to look at these two situations. I mean, Indians writing in English, there is this frequent outcry against them. And there are certain reasons why, people say Indians can't write properly in English. But your mother tongue is Konkani, but you're writing in Kannada. And this is not peculiar to you in the sense that Kannada literature seems to have a lot of such people whose mother tongue is something else. For example, Dara Bendre was Marathi speaker. He wrote in Kannada. So with Girish Karnal. So how do these languages play out in your head? You were talking obviously in Konkani at home, but there was Kannada, you were writing in Kannada.
See, I grew up with many languages. Konkani, of course. I was also exposed to Marathi because my mother studied in Marathi medium. And then Kannada, of course. Kannada was the medium of
Instruction.
I studied in a Kannada medium school, a government school. And I think it probably is the reason why I started writing in Kannada. And when I say that, there are many things to it. For example, Yakshagana, the influence of Yakshagana and the language which is used there. Okay, so let's just keep that aside for now. I'll come back to it.
Right.
And when you write, if you look at the creative process of any writer, any language, you try to look for something which is very deep inside you and try to connect it. And trying to do things which is always not palpable. You are going after something through these words and through these images and metaphors and so on. And there is, which is why every writer, whether it's good, bad, or a fresher, has certainly experienced it that you have something suddenly popping up on your page, on your screen, which you had not expected, which surprises you. And you are thrilled by it. And which is why we write, because we discover things which we think we did not know and which surprises us, right? Mm-hmm. And where does it come from? It comes from something which is very deep inside, which has this connection with the language, culture, everything. And that language is like, when you write, the word must generate the next word, a sentence must generate the next sentence. It must flow. Only then that magic happens. The magic doesn't happen if you think, it's not like writing a project report. Yeah, of course, that also has a certain element of creativity, but let's only stick to the fiction writing. Now, if you want this to happen, you have to really embed yourself in a language, in a culture. And more importantly, that has to be a language of the street. Mm-hmm. The reason I could not write in Konkani is because it is not the language of the street in anywhere in Karnataka.
Right.
If I was living in Goa, maybe I would have written in Konkani. And the problem, if I can say, with English writers, I'm not accusing nor,
Sure.
I feel it is a disadvantage because English is not a language of the street anywhere in India. Mm-hmm. You have to do it. When it is the language of the street, there's so many things that come to you. There are proverbs, there are metaphors, it just comes to you. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, English is not rooted anywhere in India. It is, till now, belong to a certain class of people. So your experience is only limited to that. All our experience is limited. Even in Kannada writers, because it depends on from which class you come, which caste you come, and etc., etc. But then this, I feel, is probably one of the reasons where the writers writing in English have to struggle more than the writers writing in Indian languages.
Right.
Because they are writing Indian experience. If they were writing, about some other experience, then it's a different issue altogether. Right? So this connection with the language for a writer I consider it very important. And it is that avyakta, it is that something which allows you to achieve paroksha in your writing. Paroksha is nothing but it's a kind of, you say something, you mean something else. Right? That's what literature is about. It is never straight. If it is straight, then it is very bland. You read and you feel it is more than this, it is something else. That something else comes from that relationship with language, and which is why I write in Kannada. It is not that, and I can never write in English because I have whatever expertise I can gain in that language. I don't have that relationship with that language. So I have experienced it when I am involved in translation as well.
Right.
When I was involved in translation of my own works, as well as the work that I translated, you are Ananthamurthy's work, I have always felt inadequate with English because I don't have that connection with that language. It is not enough to I might have read a lot in English. Maybe I'll be able to communicate, but that's not what it is when it comes to fiction. It is something else, and I don't have that something else. Right? Maybe I'll be able to write that in if I make an effort, and if I go and live in Goa, maybe I'll be able to write in Konkani. But I don't think I can write in Marathi or Hindi or any other language that I know of.
So the fact that you were immersed in Kannada,
it's very important.
It's greatly.
It's because see that magic, that certainly a word pops up. It doesn't pop up just like that. You would have met that word somewhere. You may not know. You would have met that phrase somewhere. You may not know. And that comes from your interaction with people, your interaction with, as I said, the language of the street, where you meet so many people. There are so many stories that come to you. There are so many ways in which people speak different kinds of languages in Karnataka. Kannada is spoken in different ways, their expressions, their lifestyle. There's so many things that are attached to it. So that immersing in that culture, immersing in that language is what gives you that strength. At least that's what I'll talk only for myself. Right? It gives me that strength. And I don't think I can draw that strength with any other, I don't have that strength in any other language.
So for instance, if you were hypothetically to relocate to say America or Canada, where the spoken language would be English, do you imagine a situation where you'd have difficulty writing in Kannada?
No, I can't write in, as I said, I can't write in any other language.
No, what I'm saying is, since the language of the street in America is
No,
not
that is
English,
true.
how would you then deal with that?
What I mean is, it is not, the reason when I said language of the street means it is the language connecting that language with the language of the common people. That's what I mean.
Right.
It is not, for example, till recently, it will change in India, no doubt. You can see what has happened in the last 50 years. English has become a language, one of the languages in India, and it will certainly change. Right. It will become a language of the street, and it will certainly change. I have no doubt. But till now, I can see that it is a language of a certain class of people.
Right.
It is difficult. That's why I feel it is difficult for the writers writing in English. If you are writing about Indian experience, because what comes to you naturally for a writer who is writing in an Indian language, you need to struggle, because you have to then, like for example, my Konkani experience, when I have to write in Kannada, I have to struggle.
You're translating it in your head.
Yeah, when you translate, it is gone. You can, it can be an excellent translation, but it's not the original. Right? So it is, I can see, but you must also see that because it has come from Konkani, certain things, I have added something to Kannada language as well. Similarly, the writers writing in English have added enormously to English, isn't it? I mean, you say that the Indian writers writing in English have done very great contribution to English language.
Right.
So this is that aspect. This is because you are bringing from another world. Similarly, the Dalits who have, once they start writing in the last 30, 40, 50 years, the kind of thing that they have added to the language. And now, some of the people who are from the IT world, who are trying to bring in that experience into Kannada, have also added certain things to the language. So it is that experience. It is that, something which is, every experience is connected with the language. So, which is why I'm saying that there is that the ability to draw is much more when you are writing in an Indian language, as compared to English.
Right.
I'm not making any judgment here or anything. I'm just trying to see from a writer's perspective, from the struggle that a writer has to have. Because, as I said, in Konkani, many of my dialogues, they look very awkward in Kannada. Because some of them have come from Konkani. Because I know that it doesn't work. But then that's not the best. That's the best way I can do. Otherwise, I will dilute what is in my mind. Similarly, I'll tell you about the experience of language, and one of my stories, which I wrote many years ago in 1992. It is called in English. It's called it's Huli Savari in Kannada. It's riding a tiger. And that story is set in a corporate training center. It's a corporate training, and there's a training center, and that is where the story is set. And when I first wrote that story, I wrote it, I felt it read like a translation, because there was no language to capture that experience. There were equivalent words, but those words were not used in Kannada. And hence they were so harsh to your ears. So I worked so much on that story to make it readable, but still it was difficult. So because that entire experience happened in another language,
right?
And Kannada was not ready to take that language. This was in 1992, 28 years ago, and Kannada was not ready to take that experience. Even simple terms like production, manufacturing, they looked so alien to in Kannada literature. Because nobody had written about them. They were not, the words were not the ones that were used. And then, see, you have to use them and soften them so that, they can be used with ease.
Right.
And sometimes you use difficult words because you want to make an impact. That's a different thing. But, generally, if you want to capture an experience.
Right. Now, coming to Gachar Gochar, your breakthrough novel internationally and in English as well. Now, I primarily read Gachar Gochar as a document of change. Bangalore going through so much change in the last 30 years or so, right? But when you were writing Gachar Gochar, what was the story you were trying to tell? What was the smaller story of the family and the larger picture? What was it in your head? What were you trying to put down on paper?
I don't think I can answer this question. Because what is there is what is, it's very difficult for a writer to explain his work. And for the same reason, which I was telling you, that something which we try to touch upon something which we don't know, which is something very deep inside, and some kind of magic happens. And that happens when you write a story. It is not that I fully know 100% of what has happened in the story. You make various attempts, which is when this aspect of language, culture, etc. comes in. And that gives a different dimension to the story. And if I say this is what I was trying to say, it just limits the experience for the reader. And it is also the arrogance of a writer. To say that everything is mine. It's not actually, everything is not mine. I'm talking in a different and in a broader and a profound sense. Because when you say literature, because language itself is not mine. There's so many things. There's so many writers before me. There's so many things that have happened. So there's some element of humbleness need to be there before I claim it 100%. And which is also the reason why I don't want to explain what I was, I'm trying to say. But that aside, I must say that there are some things that were really bothering me, which were because of my experience because of my work life and where I was. I worked for Hindustan Unilever for many years, and first year in India and then outside India, etc. When I started my career, I went into a very rigorous, Unilever has a rigorous training. And I also went through a sales training in which I traveled a lot of rural India, many parts of India. In one of these places, I met a salesman, and that was a very small place, and there were no restaurants. So he took me to his house, which is when I suddenly realized the kind of relationship that he had, that family had with work. His work. Everybody knew all the codes of the products that he was selling. He was a tea salesman, all that thing. And it started, and I have seen from then on, through the globalization and the following years, the relationship with work and individual. I have seen the transformation in my work life, which is what was bothering me a lot. And maybe that has some influence on this. But that seed was sown somewhere, those 25 years ago. Not that I was thinking of the story all the 25 years, but you never know. It is like, you don't know what triggers a story. But that thought was always there with me. The relationship of work and an individual.
Right. Now, coming to specifically the larger world of Kannada literature, this is something you have written about in the past. Now, there was the Navodaya movement, then there was the Navya movement, then there were the Dalit and the Bandaya movements. But all of this had more or less kind of petered out by the early mid-90s. In the last 25 years, there has been so much change. Liberalization, globalization has brought in a lot of change. But there hasn't been, or at least identifiably, there hasn't been a movement, right? But literature has responded, right? Maybe Gachar Gachar is also a response to what is happening. But why this absence of a movement, do you think? And the larger question is, do we at all need a movement to spark off literature and critical consciousness?
No, I don't think there is a movement required to spark off anything. That's certainly not.
But it helps in some way.
It helps to bring attention to certain kind of writing.
Right.
It also makes a certain kind of writing, it takes certain kind of writing out of focus. That danger is also there, because some of the works that were not so much discussed in those periods, that now we find that these writers should have been discussed more.
They were ignored because of the larger...
because of certain movement. Because when you are in a movement, you are always focused on certain issues, and that you tend to look at everything in that period from a certain framework. So maybe that helps sometimes, and it sometimes to some writers it doesn't help. But personally, I don't think it is required. Any movement is required for any kind of critical response. And we have Kannada writers. There are many good writers. People are writing. There is absolutely no dearth of new writers. So though there may not be a movement in the last 25 years, but it has not,
inhibited the production of very good.
I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so.
Right. Now, when we spoke, I kind of spoke to you about this, and I wanted your thoughts about this. What we see in Hindi, there is, I wouldn't call it a movement, but there is something happening which is called Nai Wali Hindi. A whole bunch of new writers are writing in English partly, and they are writing about themes that were perhaps not part of the earlier Hindi literary canon. Do you see something similar in Kannada? A bunch of new themes coming into consciousness for whatever reason.
See, there are writers who have tried to, like for example, there is a writer called Nagaraj Vastare, who is an architect and who has, his language is distinctly different when he tries to capture city's experience, Bangalore experience. But there is no movement as such. Right. And Kannada has not shied away from using other words from other languages because of various cultural reasons, etc., etc. like in my own writing in Kannada, there are so many Konkani words. And like as in Chittals, as in Jayant Kaikini, you see. And Bendre has many Marathi words. So it is, so it is that we have, that mixing of language is not
An issue.
it's not an issue, and it is done naturally, but not as a movement, at least
Right.
for now. There are some FM radios, radio jockeys who do use some silly language, but that's not, that's for fun, I think. It's more than, they are trying to, I don't think they are trying to build a movement or anything. But there is no such movement, number one, but people are trying to do something with the language. As I said, the example of Nagarjuna.
Right. So, unlike say Hindi, where Shuddha Hindi is a big issue, is a big, people create a lot of brouhaha around
No,
it.
there is
In
no
Kannada, there is
no Shuddha Kannada in the sense, because
Right.
the North Karnataka Kannada is completely different, and people do enjoy it, and we never differentiate North Karnataka Kannada or, for example, Kannada written by me,
right.
which you can't say Shuddha Kannada, because
Right.
there are,
If there is such a thing.
there is such a thing as well. And so as in fact there were many accusations on Girish Karnad. He has written an essay about it, Nanu Mattu Nanna Kannada, because they said that his Kannada is all mixed up.
Mixed
But
up with what?
he says he can't write Kannada. He said he can't write Kannada.
I see.
But see, there is something here. Because my mother tongue is Konkani, Kannada to me, whether it is a North Karnataka Kannada, whether it's a Mysore Kannada, Bangalore Kannada, everything is Kannada for me. I have no inhibition in using any of this or picking up any of this language. I've used that in my plays. I've used, I have no inhibition. But take, for example, Kambar. He is born and brought up in North Karnataka Kannada. He can't use anything other than that, because for him, that is the Kannada.
Right.
You know what I mean? There is, I gave an example of Kambar, but there are many such writers
Right.
who are, caught in that Kannada, because Kannada is their mother tongue. That is what Kannada they are used to. So to go beyond and do it, it is an additional effort. And you take this, Jayant Kaikini's writing, Girish Karnad's writing, Yashwant Chittal, we all take words from everywhere, because there's no inhibition. It's not our language in that sense, because I'm not tied to it. For me, Kannada is Kannada.
So, in a
there are
sense,
certain,
Kannada not being your mother tongue has liberated you.
of course, it has. It has, because I'm not tied to a particular, there is no, I don't know if I can use, there is no sense of that purity of Kannada for me. Because it will look very unnatural for Kambar to use other language.
Right.
Very unnatural in his fiction.
Tell us a little bit about your life as an editor. You edited a literary magazine for several years. You edited a literary review of Prajavani for a number of years. Tell us a little bit about that. What was it like? A writer as an editor.
See, one of the most exciting things for me was to be able to read, or rather be the first reader of many works, many important, writing. And that excitement was something which I can't tell you. It is, many short stories, Vasudendra's, Mohanaswamy's story, Girish Karnad's autobiography. Okay. Then I made him write a story for Deshakala, because people know him more as, of course, he had written one before, but then later, some of his plays, the recent plays, and many, many more, Kannada writers. So I have been the first reader, and that excitement, and that is something that I still cherish. The other thing is, being an editor is the ability to engage yourself with the young writers. That is something which was not, which I had not done till now formally. But this suddenly, editing the journal gave me an enormous opportunity to engage with younger writers and writers from different parts of Karnataka. And that I cherished that memory very much. Of course, then there are many other difficulties of doing it. I felt that I could not write my own, I couldn't give more time to
your own
my own writing, because it was taking a lot of time. And it's the other thing which I did is in Deshakala is in every issue, it was a quarterly, in every issue, I translated a story from other Indian languages into Kannada,
Okay.
for which I had to do a lot of writing or a lot of reading from other Indian languages. And it is only at that time I realized how little I knew about other Indian languages. See, I had this arrogance because I'm a writer in Indian language, and generally, you know, people, you know, writers, so you feel that I also know about Tamil literature, I also know about Malayalam, you have that feeling. But when you have to choose something, especially something that is not in Kannada, which is something special that you want to give it to your readers, suddenly you realize that you have so little knowledge about these languages. And then, of course, my friends helped and I read enormously. I would spend about 80% of my time on these 10 pages, because it took that much of time. But then I think it was a very enriching experience. I would not have read so much in other Indian languages if not for my journey.
One last question before I throw the floor open. What are you writing now?
I'm working on a novel.
Okay. Okay, one supplementary. Do you prefer the novel or do you prefer the short story?
I started as a short story writer, but now I prefer novel because I think it gives me more space. But the most challenging is, I've also written plays, but the most challenging of all is writing a play. Because I find it extremely difficult.
Okay. We would now like to request the audience questions.
Folks in the audience, if you've got any questions, you could come up here, please. And we'll get some questions from Zoom as well. I think laptops not functioning very well.
Sure.
So I'll just follow up with your last point. So is Vivek Shanbhag, the short story writer, very different from Vivek Shanbhag, the novelist? And in which ways?
Yeah, I think, yes, I would say. Because, see, novel is not a long short story. It's not a long story. Because when you look at a novel, you look at an experience in a completely different way. Because you're trying to explore many levels of it. But in a short story, it is, how do I say it? It is, that space itself gives you a lot of freedom. For a short story writer, it gives a lot of freedom because you know that you will end it in 10 pages. You will end it in 12 pages. I'm just saying, 12, whatever. And you know that you can say certain things and leave out certain things. In a novel, it pushes you because there is no limit. It pushes you to explore yourself fully. And if you have not done it, and you are guilty of not doing it, right? So I feel that is more challenging. So novels. So I prefer novels because I find it's more challenging.
Thank you.
From a gentleman named Ganapati Murali. His question goes, R.K. Narayan wrote beautifully in English and yet brought home the way one converses in local language. How did he succeed?
Yeah, it depends. No, I don't. What I mean to say is, I don't know what he meant by succeed. See, each writer is different in ways of picking up themes and what you want to achieve. So I think Narayan, in that sense, in depicting a certain lifestyle and certain characters, I'm sure he has certainly succeeded. But what I was talking about is the challenge and difficulties. Now compare R.K. Narayan with the writers of his times in Kannada. Shivaram Karan, for example, is a far superior, greater writer than R.K. Narayan. And that answers my question. That answers this question.
We'll take maybe two more questions from Zoom, unless someone in the audience does have a question. Okay, I don't see any hands go up. There's one question that says, how can writers writing in India in English make it a more personal experience for the audience? How much of bringing words from the native language into this is too much? Or how much is too much? I think that's really the question.
I don't think, I think it depends on a writer wants to treat the language. I don't think there is any limit on this. There are, of course, there are many writers who are writing in English who have very effectively captured certain experiences in English. And the recent example is Amitabh Bakshi in his novel, where the entire novel is centered on Ramcharitmanas. You can see that you can see that Hindiness in that English, which is what I meant by the contribution that Indian writers writing in English have made to that language, and you can experience it. It's different, And when I read Arundhati Roy in her first novel, I was very thrilled because I had not read that kind of English till then. I was so thrilled that that Indian world is expressed in this way. And if I read it now, I may have a different view. But at that time, when it came 25 years ago, I was very thrilled to read that English, and that especially seeing those things in English.
This is the last question from Siddhartha Mukherjee. He prefaces it with a comment. Arvind Krishna Mehrotra's brilliant translations of Kabir and other Prakrit poetry show how much light a good translator brings into the darkness of forgotten tongues. So his question is it still relevant to discuss the idea that, within quotes, Indians can't write English, or that some concepts cannot be translated? So is it still relevant to discuss these ideas, is his question. And with that, and Karthik, back to you to wrap up.
I don't think, I never said nor think that Indians can't write in English. I think we have really fine writers in writing in English. There is, I hope my comments were taken in the right sense.
I'm sure that
it is more about the struggle of a creative writer than the writers writing in English. So certainly the writers writing in English will understand what I'm trying to say. Coming back to that question of translation, I think translation is a very difficult process. And the reason is, see, when your work has to pass through the gate of translation, for example, there's a certain word which has so many meanings in a language, and at that gate of translation you are forced to pick up one meaning, while in the original it has 5 different meanings, and at that point in time you have to pick up that one particular meaning in that another language, in English for example, and once it crosses over, it has 4 other meanings to that word. In given the context, you have no control over it. And suddenly the sentences which were so profound in your original language look so silly in translation. Because everything, all those words, as words have those memories, and you are taking away all the memories of those words and going into another space, you strip everything of that memory and then translate. Like, there is for example, if I say enna kale kamba of a vachana, even I don't have to say the full sentence. I have to just say my kale kamba. It means it takes me to 12th century and the vachana movement, right? And if I translate that into English, it means nothing. Like a profound Bendre sentence, which is Bari Belagallo Anna, will translate into like some beautiful morning. It sounds so silly. So, which is why translation is very, very difficult. So translating something which has these aspects, like for example poetry, is always difficult compared to prose, because in prose at least there is a plot, there is a storyline, there is something which can go into other language, which is culpable. In poetry, it is very difficult, which is why I feel, though I can't appreciate the original, but Ramanujan's translation of the Tamil poetry, Sangam poetry, and when you read it along with his afterword, you understand the kind of effort that has gone in and the difficulties of translation, and that I see as really a great example of translation and the struggle that the translator has to go through.
So thank you very much. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for unpacking all of this wonderful world for us. So in conclusion, was it Robert Frost who said, poetry is what is lost in translation? I think that kind of sums up a lot of what you have said. So thank you for talking to us. I hope all of you enjoyed the conversation as much as I enjoyed doing it.
And thank you. Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you so much, Karthik. Thank you, Vivek, for such an enjoyable conversation.